The race for governor in Alabama is drawing national attention with a high-profile rematch between Republican Senator Tommy Tuberville and former Democratic Senator Doug Jones. The two candidates faced off in the 2020 election for U.S. Senate in the state when Tuberville unseated Jones. Now they're battling again, this time for Alabama's highest office. Doug Jones joins us now. Senator, thanks for being with us. For people who've been paying attention to Michigan and Wisconsin and Minnesota and all these other races we've been talking about lately, take us inside the state of Alabama right now, obviously a very red state. You know that very well. What are the main issues right now? We heard that ad coming in to break about data centers, but what are you hearing on the ground? Is it what we're hearing everywhere, that life is just too expensive?
Yeah, that's a big issue. It has been from the very beginning. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about that. You know, electricity bills, gas prices, farmers have been hurting a lot. That is all a huge issue, just the umbrella of the affordability issues. But I'm going to tell you something, guys. The data center issue has become front and center. It crosses political lines. It crosses zip codes. It crosses economic lines. You name it. It has become a huge issue. Healthcare is always an issue for us. Education is always an issue. But I think people are ready for a change, too. That's what we're seeing and hearing more and more, that people are just fed up with the government, whether it is Washington, D.C. or Montgomery, Alabama. They're just fed up and they want to change.
The Senator, we should note, you campaign momentum here, outraised Tommy Tuberville in July in terms of fundraising. But it is, as Willie mentioned, look, we know Alabama is a red state. The president's still pretty popular there. So how do you make the case? What is your message in terms of saying, look, you might still like the job that the guy in the White House is doing, but we need to take a different path in the Senate? How do you thread that needle?
You know, look, there's a couple of things just to keep in mind. First of all, I think it's easy to do when you're talking about your kitchen table issues in Alabama. Those things are affecting everybody on the daily basis, whether it is a data center going up next door or whether it is the price at the gas pump, and they're seeing these endless wars. And I also point out that the recent polling that we've seen, I mean, consistently is actually showing Donald Trump underwater in Alabama. He has plummeted in terms of his favorabilities. People do not like what they're seeing going on, and they know that he came into office promising to lower prices, promising to make their affordability issues a lot better, and he's not done any of that. He's spending all his time on his vanity projects and fighting a war overseas that's causing gasoline and fertilizer prices for farmers to go up. So I don't think it's as big a lift as people think. And besides, in 2020, when I lost to Tuberville, we got 900,000 votes in that race, which would have been enough to win any governor's race in the history of Alabama. Those are the votes we're going after. And I believe that they're there. And I believe that that has grown somewhat because of the independents moving our way, because of moderate Republicans moving our way. There's something going on on the ground in Alabama, just like it is around the country.
Hi, Doug. It's Molly Jong-Fast here. I'm really, I think running on data centers, among other things, is so important. And I interviewed the woman who won the Democratic primary in the state of Kansas. And again, Kansas, red state with a blue governor. So I think it's a very good parallel. And I talked to her about this data centers, and it really, she did make it a central plank of her primary campaign. Right. I wonder if you could talk about red states and data centers and what the sort of relationship is, because this really feels like an 80-20 issue.
Yeah, there's no question about it. And you know, look, conservative states like Alabama and the South, they've also got this libertarian streak. They don't want the government intruding on their lives. It doesn't matter whether it's the flock cameras that they're seeing everywhere now or whether it's AI, data centers or whatever. And they don't like people coming in and doing it in secret. That's a huge piece of all of this. Nobody is really against technology. Everybody wants to see us progress. But what's been happening is that these guys are coming in, these big tech companies, they're waving a dollar around like it's, crazy. And so many Alabama politicians start, grabbing it like a cat chasing a laser pointer. And they're not telling the people anything about it until it's too late. They're signing non-disclosure agreements. They're signing agreements to shred documents after it's over. And that's what's got people so upset. They want to know, and they deserve to know, about what's going on in their communities on the front end. And let them make a decision. Let them them do that cost-benefit analysis. They don't want their power bills going up. They want to protect their water. They want to protect their land and the quality of life in their communities. And that's all they're asking. And that's why I'm calling for a 1-year moratorium to give a chance to put those guardrails in place for the people of Alabama.
So, Senator, let me ask you a bigger question just about AI, about tech, the tech sector in general, and the Democratic Party. You know, you and I are old enough to remember under the Clinton-Gore administration, they were on their front feet on tech. And most tech leaders supported them, supported Barack Obama, supported Democrats because Democrats were seen as the pro-tech political party. Now it's just the opposite. Republicans are seen as the party that supports AI, that supports crypto, that supports you name it, and it's caused a real divide between Silicon Valley and the Democratic Party. If you're governor of Alabama, you're going to want those jobs. Like you look, I saw stats yesterday that showed that the Bay Area of San Francisco, I mean, it's like 5 times the GDP of London. It's extraordinary how much money and jobs are created by the tech sector. But right now, they're fleeing California. They're going to Texas. How do you be positive on tech issues and say, come to Alabama, just like Mercedes-Benz? We would be a great place to come, and we're not anti-tech.
Well, look, Joe, there's a big difference between a manufacturing plant that has the ability to expand like Mercedes-Benz, bringing in a bunch of jobs, and other industries that support it, and a data center that's a storage facility that's not going to have a whole lot of jobs. It's not going to have anything except 8 football fields worth of concrete, and that's about all you see. People just want to know. No one is opposed to tech. Everyone wants to see the state, the country progress under technology. We just want to make sure it's done the right way. There are absolutely no guardrails right now protecting the community in Alabama. And people just deserve to know. That's the whole thing. You can slow this process down. You can put a moratorium on it. Put those guardrails up and give people an opportunity to do that cost benefit. See what each company is going to bring to those communities, and let that community decide whether it's worth these big old massive concrete buildings or whether they would like to keep their pristine land. That should be their decision. Yeah. It should not just be a matter of money.
So your position, you're not anti-tech, you're saying. You want the structure in place to make sure that if this is done, it's done the right way.
Absolutely, Joe. You know, look, Trump, Tuberville say that these things are going to be gold mines. Well, maybe they are, but the people don't know that. And when you're from Alabama, you know this, Joe. If you're from Alabama and a politician in Alabama tells you that something's going to be a gold mine, you need to be asking the question, who's getting the gold and who's getting the shaft? That's the big issue right now. I think people need to know, have the transparency. They need to know who is bringing this. Right now, it's a whole bunch of shell companies, and you can't tell who's going to make the money. People want to know that. They want to know how they're going to be protected, how these representations are going to be enforced, whether it's environmental or whatever, going forward. That's a big piece of this.
Alabama Democratic gubernatorial nominee, former Senator Doug Jones, thank you.
And roll tide.
Very much
and
for being on the show this morning.